Well, hello again. I've got another clock for you. This one's relatively simple, and for a change it's a wall clock. It goes on the wall instead of standing freestand, just for a change, and it has a pendulum, which you'll see in a moment. So I've gone ahead and stuck some of it together, and I'll explain the parts to you as well, how I got this far. It's made from black matte board, or a sort of art board that I get from my art shop. It's fairly fine. It's much heavier than cardstock or even the Cricut Kraftboard, and it cuts beautifully on the Maker. So this is particularly aimed at the Maker. But you could make this clock. You could just cut these out in Cricut Kraftboard about 3 times and stick them together, or just ordinary cardstock. You'd need about 4 layers of cardstock stuck together to give it some kind of stability. But this is just cut from these matte board. And all of the pieces that are going to decorate it are on matte board too. I actually stuck them, you can see sideways here, I actually stuck them on white craft board first. The reason being, they all have a sort of white edge to them, and I don't know whether they really intended that when they made these images, but I wasn't all that keen, and in fact I've inked this one a little bit in a couple of places with this sort of, I think I used, yes, this Tim Holtz Distress Oxide, which I think I've got upside down. There we are. And I just took a little bit of the white away, you can see in various places there. And a couple of these pieces, well, this one's on matte board, but this one didn't really like being on matte board, so I would suggest you cut a couple of layers of Cricut Kraftboard for that, or just some black cardstock, however many layers you think it needs to give it make it reasonably stiff and durable. So the roof piece is a separate piece of matte board with pattern paper on, and I've also put a little bit of inking around the edge of that. The clock I made in about 4 layers, 2 purple and 2 orangey yellow. Looks very yellow when I look at it there, but it's a sort of orangey yellow, on top of each other and just glued into place. The door frame I also cut in matte board as well as cardstock, just to give it a bit of dimension, but you don't need to do that if you don't want to. And this is another piece of matte board here, stuck onto the background, and it's got a darker grey cardstock on top of it. So you can see all those pieces. So this is really a couple of layers of matte board all stuck together, because the door and this piece is one piece, this is an extra piece, and the roof is an extra piece. So that's got quite a lot of solid weight to it. And then I made a back to the clock, which you'll see in a moment. That's where the door goes, which I don't think I've put here just at the moment. You could leave the door off actually if you wanted to, but I am going to put a door in there, and I'll show you how I do that when I locate the door in a minute. And then I've got a pendulum clock movement that I bought from, I believe it was Joann's, and it has a pendulum on it. It looks like this, and I've taken the gold piece off. I'll tell you how I did that, and I've replaced it with this so that it's going to have a dangly, whatever his, Jack on it. And so I'm going to put this together and show you. It's my usual method of construction strips. I've already put one on each side on the inside of this box part that goes on the back. And the bottom part, the top is solid, but the bottom has a hole in it deliberately so that the pendulum can swing through here. And I'm vaguely considering putting some lights that will shine through there, but I haven't got to that point yet. So I'm just going to put these pieces together, and I'm wondering, I think I maybe ought to find the door before I go any further. So I'm going to lean over and switch you off for a moment while I go and look for it. Okay, so I located the door, because I think we should do the door before we stick the clock together. And the way I'm going to do that, there are two pieces here. The one without the holes, so we'll put this one aside, put the one that's just solid. I'm going to adhere the door with a piece of black, looks like masking tape, and you could use duct tape, or you could use a piece of cardstock like one of these, the scored construction strip, but it's not very important because this is the bit that's on the wall and you're not going to see it. You just need to gain access of it when your battery runs out. So I think I cut that a bit short, but I can always cut a second piece. I'm going to glue that down there, and on the other side as well. Rather not glue, tape. I'll get the right length this time, shall I? It's more like that. I don't want it longer than the door, or it's going to stop the door from opening properly. But something like that. Cut the top bit off. And this side, make sure it will open. You may have to tape it while it's actually up. Right. And I've got a little bit more on this end to fill the gap. And there we are. I think this bit could have been a bit wider, so I'm going to stick a second piece, but just one should be enough if you put it in the right place the first time around. So I'm going to move this one over a little bit. Put that on. Put the end up. That looks a bit better. Make sure it opens and closes okay. There we are. So there we are, we've got the door taped into place. And we're going to have a simple piece of cardstock with a magnet on it to close it. And I put that here somewhere, which I've temporarily mislaid, but I know it's here. So it says, well, oh, here it is. And I'm just going to tape that on there, put the magnet on here, put another magnet underneath, and the reason it's not too important, actually, do I want that? I think I want the catch on the outside, of course I do. So I'll do that a bit later on, but I will sandwich the magnet in between. So I'll look now where I want the magnet to go, and I'm going to just put it right in the middle. I'm going to get one of my larger, very extra strong, tiny magnets. And this one I think is about a 1/2 inch. And I'm going to glue and tape that into place before I put the back on. So put that, I think, just right about there. piece of tape on it to stop it from sliding around. Two rolls of tape now. And that should be big enough. And that will go over there to hold that in place. And then you won't see that in a moment because this bit is going to go on top of it. So that will go there like that. But anyway, we'll get to that in a moment. Meanwhile, we're going to put this together. And this back piece lines up with the front, so that the bottom is flush and the sides are flush with the little box, and that's going to be the bit that's on the wall. So I've already put one of my construction strips on. Those strips have a narrow, when you score them, they've got a narrow piece and a wider piece. This is because this is very narrow here. We don't want your strips to show. But all the others are wider, both sides. And we're going to, they don't look long enough. I must have some longer ones somewhere. I don't know why, but anyway, I will put this one on first. And I'm going to cut the corners, well, off at a sort of 45-degree angle. Put that one there. And I don't seem to have the right length ones for this part, so I'm going to have to switch you off again for a second. And I found them. So here we go again. So I'm putting these pieces that look like this inside my box and sticking them to, and I've already cut those at roughly 45 degrees. That looks a little less. And I'm going to glue those into place on the inside. Black is hard to see, but I'll try and show you a bit closer. So there's one stuck into place, yes, you can see that. And then this one, stick that one there. And this is how I construct all my models and clocks, with construction strips basically. I haven't tried making one out of wood yet. My little attempts with wood so far haven't been that successful. I'm going to try some other things, but in those cases I would use wood glue, I suppose, and maybe wooden strips, not folded like this but flat. That looks a little bit, I get these a bit more off there, and stick that into place as well. I'm using glue. You could use double-sided tape if you wanted to. Sometimes I do. Sometimes I use glue. Glue is a little more forgiving. Lets you move it around a little bit to where you want it. And then now we're going to stick this bit with the door on to there, only of course that way up. Make sure you've got it the right way around while you and before I do that, I'm just going to pull these up a bit so I make sure that they stick well, and I'm going to put glue on those. Close to your edges, but not so much glue it's all going to ooze out. if you do have a maker and you use some sort of mat board, I think you could use their heavy chipboard too. I think that would work for the house pieces, not for the decorations. I would, if you were going to use, I would use mat board or craft board for the decorations, but the actual clock itself, I'm sure you could cut it out of heavy chipboard. Now, to make sure those stick firmly, I'm going to put my hand inside the clock, either through the door, and press into place. You need to hold that quite firmly until you think it's properly stuck and square to all the walls. And I am going to stick a strip at the bottom here to help again hold it in place. That one's not the one, I need one with the narrow edge, like that. And I'm going to stick that along the bottom before I stick the other piece on. So put glue on that. And stick that here. So it helps hold it in place. Because of the shaped sides, where I usually put double construction strips, it's not so easy to do. You could put a narrow one here and there, a less narrow one to hold that in place, and I might do that. We'll see how it feels when it's done. But that's optional too. I think I'll also put a couple of the narrow ones across the bottom here, across here and here, to hold that together nicely. So there's one. Putting one there, just to give it a bit more. Make it a little more solid. I don't know if I've got another narrow one, I'll just cut one down a little bit. Say none of this is going to be visible from the front anyway, that's a little wide. Meanwhile, I'll get myself covered in glue as usual and stick that one on there. Give that a bit of solidity. And as I say, you could put an extra strip down these parts, but you know what, it feels pretty solid to me, and so I am not going to bother. So that's the front and that's the back so far, and then this piece, there are two holes so that I could put a piece of wire, so you could hang this on the wall. There's various ways you could hang this clock, and you don't have to do it this way. This is wire from Dollar Tree, just from the floral section. I don't think, of course I haven't got my wire cutters. You just excuse me, I'll grab those from over here. Can you still hear me? I always think I'm prepared and got everything in the right place, but I haven't always. And I don't think I need that big piece, something like that. Put that. And also, before I stick the back on, I'm going to put the clock on, the clock in place. And I already showed you, it's got rather a long, well, I think you call that a spindle or something like that. I couldn't find a pendulum clock that had a shorter one. So I'm going to give it a bit of depth by, I've got 3 circles, you'll see them on your pattern. They all mat board stuck together, or you could use chipboard, or you could do several layers of cardstock. And I'm going to put a little bit of double-sided tape on the back to keep them in place. So stop them slipping around on the clock. And I'll do the same on the other side before I push it into the clock. So put those down firmly, take the backing off. What do you think? Just about, yes, there's one. I know you use this thing, a pointy thing, and get it off and see if it works for me. It does seem to work for everybody else. Something like that. I don't know. I find it easier just with my fingernails. So I'm just going to push this onto here and push the double-sided tape and try and keep it in place, which it doesn't want to do, of course. I don't know why, as it's not as flat as it looks. There's a bit that's stopping it from. It won't go flat to the... Anyway, or you could glue it, or you could just leave it. If you screw it up tight enough, it doesn't really need it. But anyway, I'm going to put some more tape on this one to stick to the back of the clock to stop that part moving. And as for this, well, I don't know. Could put some glue in there. But anyway, for now, I'm just going to put, and make sure the pendulum part is upside down. I've already got the battery in there. When I say upside down, I mean towards the bottom, and push it through. And then I'm going to stick this black piece on, but first of all I'm going to put this wire through. And I'm just going to make like a loop to hang on the wall, and then I'm going to bend these parts. Something like that. And then I'm going to twist these up slightly. Use pliers or something, and I'm going to tape across those with my tape to hold that in place. So there's your loop to go on the wall, and I'm going to tape that into place. Stop it moving around. This tape will actually tear, and tape it down nice and firmly into place on the back of that piece. Hoping I've got this the right way around. Yes, I have. And then I'm going to glue these 2 pieces together. And I'm going to pull the door out of the way first, and I'm going to glue those down. So make sure that every little pointy bit has got some glue on, but don't try not to try and get a nice fine line so that it doesn't ooze out too much. This is my art glitter glue, which does dry clear if it does happen to ooze. I'm going all the way around the edges, and that edge, and that. You could hot glue this if you wanted to. Sometimes I don't always have a great deal of success with hot glue, but it's all a matter of preference, I suppose. Whatever suits you best. And then don't forget to go around the door part, because that needs to stick into place too. And then just about, oh, and I missed the little fence bit, or whatever it is. It's not really a fence, I don't know what it is. Anyway, so there's plenty of glue on there, and I'm going to push this into place. Make sure they line up properly. Bring the door out through the hole and hold my fingers at the edges. Make sure it all lines up nicely. Like that. Make sure, hold it in place until the glue is stuck to everything. Because if you don't, you'll have to go around afterwards and stick the pieces that aren't stuck back together again. And so there we are so far, our little house. So this is a Nightmare Before Christmas clock, as I'm sure I've already said. Looks more like Nightmare at Halloween to me, but I suppose Halloween is before Christmas. And the images are on Design Space. You have to pay for them, but don't go and pay for them all individually. Go and look for the design set. I think it's $9.99, something like that. You get 10% off if you're an Access member, and of course then you can use them as many times as you want. I don't think that's too bad a price, and I don't think that one's stuck properly. Set in there. Pretty good, they're pretty well stuck. And then, when we've done that, we will, oops, my door's gone on the inside, but at least you can get your hand through underneath and get to it if you need to. So then this part sticks onto the front of that. First of all, I stuck my darker grey piece of roof on. And then those pieces, it's got to be threaded through on the spindle again. And push that through firmly. And I have here's the pieces of the clock. I very often don't use that piece. Maybe I should. But first of all, you've got this gold piece. It goes on first, and then you have this, and it looks like a little collar piece, and that goes on top, and you screw that into place, and it helps sometimes to hold inside when you're doing that to make sure you've got your clock in the right position. You screw that piece as tight as you can so that the clock inside doesn't move around. But what I forgot was, I have to undo that, having screwed it as tight as I can, I forgot that I haven't stuck the pieces of the house together yet. Ah, here we go. So I'll do that again in a moment. Before you do that, you need to put glue to stick the two pieces together. And I hadn't really considered the order to do it, but I think you really do need it. Since I've already stuck the clock in, I'm going to have to put the glue underneath as best I can. Now, you might want to do it in a different order. I think perhaps I've made it a little difficult for myself, putting the clock in first. And that's a lot to do when I'm designing these things, working out the order that you need to put things in, because one thing stops you from doing another thing sometimes. I think I'm going to have to take this off and thread it on afterwards, so because that just wasn't working out very well. So, yeah, in order to get the glue in all the right places, you're going to have to thread the spindle part afterwards. And try not to get too much glue all over the place when you do, which I probably inevitably will, because I'm very messy. But yeah, I always consider it as part of being an artist. It's my excuse for being messy. So, very carefully holding that in place with the spindle, holding the clock from behind, I'm going to push it down and hope that, yep, it looks like it's going to work okay. And then make sure your house is firmly stuck down in all the right places and is lined up correctly. And I've got my baby wipes handy, but I didn't make too much mess. And that all sticks like that. That looks pretty good, don't you think? So, as I say, you've got to decide what's the best order to do that. My advice wasn't necessarily the best, but you have to get those all together in one way or another. You want the holes to line up well. But they probably will, because all the rest of it lines up, so the hole's going to line up. And you probably could have pushed your clock in afterwards rather than doing it the way I did, which was really potentially quite messy. Anyway, it's worked nevertheless, and we're back to putting this back on again. And screwing that in place. Holding the clock underneath in the right position, because you want the pendulum to be at the bottom. And you can get pliers and put it even firmer. Yep, my pendulum looks like it's in the right place. And there we are. And then we've got the decorative parts. The pendulum goes, you'll see it hangs in there, something like that. But we won't do that at the moment. We've got these other pieces, these three. Together this character's called 0. And I'm going to put him just to the side of the door. I'm going to put Jack on the back part, just peeping over the roof. And I'm going to put the other Jack and 0 down here, avoiding the clock. But the hands I think are going to be quite high, so I don't think we need to worry that he's going to interfere with those. Now again, you could hot glue these into place if you want. I think I'm going to try and glue them with this glue. Or you could use E6000, which is another possibility if you want a strong hold. But I'm going to see where I want my glue to be, and I'm going to draw around it with a pencil on the back. It's the line I'm going to glue up to. I've just drawn on there with the pencil. I don't know if you can see that pencil line, but it shows me where to put the glue. I'm going to put a fairly liberal amount. I'm going to lay this down, and I want him to be, actually I don't want him, I think I need to wipe a little bit of the glue off here. I don't want him quite as low as that. There's a tissue behind me. It wasn't very successful, but don't worry, I will ink over anything that doesn't look right at the end. I want him a little bit lower than, so that some of the fence shows. So I'm going to stick him right here. Like that. And I'm just going to, not quite on the clock like that, but somewhere like that. And to leave him to stick. And then 0 is going to come over here. He's going to be over the door slightly and at that corner. So I think I will just do a little bit of a pencil line under there, something like that, and halfway across. I've actually seen this movie. I only know what bit they're called because it says so on the. So I'm going to stick him, so he's sticking out the side there, but firmly to the door. And Jack's there. And really those things need a little bit of time to dry. That's them. And then he's going up here on the back, and so I can see comes up to about here, the glue. I'm going to stick him on the back, looking over the parapet as it were, over here. And I'm going to put him out a little bit. And he's got a bit of excessive glue too. Not at all. But not the way I did the other. And it will look like, let me see if I can get it into a position where you can see it all. Like that. And then I'm going to, I haven't done the door magnet. I suppose I can put those face down while I do that. But although the clock, I'm going to like it very much. And there's my piece for the door magnet. So I'm going to stick this the door. So sandwich a magnet in between. But first I've got to find out which way round it needs to go. That way. So that's got to go on here. Just check now, I forgot what I did. And I'll put a dot of glue so I know which one has got to have the glue on it. And I'm going to stick that there and sandwich it between a piece of, I did have a piece cut, but I will just use a piece and sandwich it in between. Cut round it. And then this, find where it needs to go, that way around, and glue that into place. So I'll put the glue on this side. Find where it needs to go and let it stick to the door. And then I have this picture that's going to go over the door and cover part of where I just put this door latch on, and it will help not only decorate, but it will help hold the door latch in place. And it's just a decoration for the door at the back, which you won't see anyway, except when you take it off the wall to put the magnet in. But it's an attractive way of making sure your door latch is held in place. Not to get excess glue, I can't intend to. It will dry clear, so it's not too bad. So we're there with that part. And finally, the pendulum, I haven't put the hands on either, but they're straightforward. I can show you if you want. The pendulum, I have to sort of fish around up here inside. You probably maybe need a little light to see where you're going, and that will stick onto the bottom of the movement, which I can't see very well at the moment. I can't see it very well. I'm going to have to get, oh, there it is. I found it. And then when he gets going, he will rock like that at the bottom. So I will put a picture at the end of exactly how it all comes out, but that's how you put it together. That's the clock, and there's the pendulum that goes on the inside. And you hold it, hang it on the wall with that piece of wire. And just to tell you a little bit about these, they were not white, they were gold. I didn't really like them gold, so I coloured them with my black Sharpie. And you push the hour hand on firmly first, and then you push the minute hand on. There's a little, I'll have to check actually, there's a little nut. I'm not sure if that goes in between or on top of those, but they go like that. And then the second hand pushes into the hole on the bottom. But I'll show you all that put together. I'll have to check the clock instructions, but you put the second hand on, then the minute hand, and I think the nut goes in between the two, but you have to read the instructions, and then the minute hand, the second hand goes on the top of that. and these should be fairly firmly stuck. And you could put lights, you could put some lights up on the inside if you wanted to and tape them in, and you can reach them to switch them on and off through the bottom. What was I going to say? Oh, the Dollar Tree sells some little purple bats that you could just drape over it. I might do that, but I will show you a picture of what I decided to do with the end of it online. So there we are, my Nightmare Before Christmas wall clock. And so I'll say goodbye from Cherry in Florida and see you again soon for another one. And I'm just going to switch you off now. Bye. Actually, I'm back for a minute because I just forgot to tell you that the way I took the pendulum part of the pendulum, whatever you call this piece, is you can unscrew this screw at the bottom and it just slides off. Then I sandwiched my decoration with Kraftboard each side and made sure it stuck firmly both sides. And then I put the screw back on and I tightened it so that it just is at the bottom like that. And I forgot to tell you that part, so I've just come back to give you that last piece of information.